Cinema St. Louis's The Lens is now the takeup.com, a place to gather after the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and fear not, all your favorite episodes of The Lens featuring all your favorite guests are still here in your feed, just a little refocused. Stay subscribed to us here for future episodes, and you can follow along for new ones and more at the Takeup STL. Thank you for joining us on The Lens, a Cinema St. Louis podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, programmer and critic. I'm joined by my co-host. She is the social media manager, critic, and programmer for Cinema St. Louis. It is Kayla Bacala. Hey, Kayla.
Hi.
And then we've also got Andrew Wyatt, the managing editor of Cinema St. Louis's film site, The Lens, also critic, programmer. Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
Well, you can find all of our awards at The Lens on cinemastlouis.org. Here we focus on one film every episode. We do it in miniseries, and right now we are in Nancy Nora, covering the films of filmmakers Myers and Efron. I picked Heartburn. Before we do that, we're going to go to Now Showing for some new releases. Then we've got a game. Kayla's going to quiz us on Nancy versus Nora. And then finally, we've got one more thing. George Miller, 3,000 Years of Longing. Wow. What year was Mad Max? Fury Road was 2015, right? So it's 7 years. This is his next passion project.
It's one he's been working on for about 20 years, is my understanding. He's been trying to adapt it from A.S. Byatt's short story that he, from the 90s, I believe. He's been really was taken with it and was trying to adapt it. And his daughter, I think, is a co-screenwriter on it, co-writer on it.
That's interesting.
She's never done any film stuff before, and she collaborated with him on this. I enjoyed it. I think it's a weird, idiosyncratic film, which is not necessarily a bad thing in my view. It's got some structural issues. It's a little lumpy, especially in the end.
Because it's about like storytelling, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you vibe on the stories about story genre, which is practically sort of a little genre into itself, right? If you liked Adventures of Baron Munchausen, if you liked Big Fish, if you liked The Fall, like I think this is going to be exactly up that same alley for you. I don't know. It has a lot of cool visual style is sort of off the charts. Like you could just go into it, and like a lot of these movies, you could go into it just from a production design geekery standpoint and watch it from that, and it's kind of awesome. It kind of like updates the 1001 Nights conceit by having a frame story and then putting 3 sort of nested stories inside that frame story. Also a little Cloud Atlas in there. If you like the Cloud Atlas vibe, you'll probably like this.
The 3 of us do.
Very earnest.
Do you like Cloud Atlas, Andrew? I know Kayla and I like it.
Oh yeah, I like Cloud Atlas a lot. I like the novel better, but I did like what the film did.
Yeah.
So if you like that sort of very earnest storytelling about stories with a slightly bizarro sensibility, I think it's a good time. Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba aren't necessarily like the couple that springs to mind, but when you put them in the room together, they're such acting powerhouses. They just naturally sort of spark off each other. Plus, you put Idris Elba, shirtless and 8 feet tall. He pretty much can't not be sexy. So there's a little bit of that. I can't believe I haven't
seen this thing yet because of that. We talked about Beast on the last episode, the lion, attacks movie. Idris as like protective daddy. I'm not going to include that. I can't. Gross.
I kind of like
daddy on the podcast.
I kind of like his vibe in this in particular because it's a little different than anything he's done before. He's playing this immortal djinn, and he knows that he has this sort of power, sensuality or power about him. He purrs these lines. Idris Elba could purr a line like, "I am made of subtle flame," and make it sound, like a come on. But he also has like this sort of self-loathing vulnerability about his character, about the djinn knows that he's screwed up. He has screwed up over and over again. The reason he's been imprisoned for so long is because it's his own foolery that put him in that situation, mostly involving mortal women. So there's a little bit of like a self-loathing vulnerability there. I liked a lot. It's a cool role, and not necessarily. I was expecting maybe something a bit more cartoonish given the premise, right? It's a movie. It's a genie movie. It's a wish, and there's some meta awareness too. Tilda Swinton plays a mythology expert. So the minute she realizes that she's in a mythology / folklore situation, she like immediately says, "Nope, I am not participating in this monkey's paw scenario. Thank you very much."
You just said nope and monkey's paw in the same sentence.
I did. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Also, I have a problem with something you said. I'm pretty sure Tilda Swinton is immortal. So
I mean, she's not really aging, so
no. Yeah. I love her. I would drink the life spring from which she comes. You know, I didn't mean that. I don't even know what that means.
Let's not put that in transcription.
I saw and reviewed for KMOV Hunk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. That's a kind of mockumentary / satire about organized religion.
Yeah, this week was the first time. I guess this film was at Sundance or somewhere earlier this year. But this week was the first time I had heard that it's a mockumentary. I was like, I thought this was a straight comedy, like scripted comedy.
Well, here's the thing about it is the premise, the conceit is that Sterling K. Brown plays this megachurch pastor, and he's had this sexual misconduct scandal. So everyone has sort of fled the congregation, but his steadfast wife, played by Regina Hall, is still by his side, and they are attempting to relaunch the church. And so a documentary crew is following them while they're doing all this relaunch. So within this part of the film, it's attempting the Christopher Guest gambit, right? It's like, let's follow these people doing very cringy things. And through that, we will reveal human behavior as it is. But this film also shows you behind the scenes, which is sort of a failure on its part. I think that the fascination, or what's interesting about a mockumentary or even documentary, is that you set on a premise. Documentaries of this style, I shouldn't generalize so broadly like that. You set on a premise, and eventually what is revealed is some facet of human nature that maybe the subjects themselves are not aware of or did not intend to show. Things like, I don't know, Queen of Versailles. That's the kind of documentary that they end up making within this film. But this film decides to reveal human behavior more expertly in its dramatic sequences behind the scenes. It isn't funny, which is sort of a failing on the marketing, I think. I mean, it does attempt really broad comedy, just what you would expect from a mockumentary, or even, I don't know, sitcoms as they are now, like Abbott Elementary and, of course, The Office. What's good about it is the two leads. Of course, I don't know that I've ever seen them do anything bad. It's a shame that Regina Hall isn't given more something comedically meaty to do in this. But dramatically, there's a scene, sort of the climax for her character and how much she's invested in this church and really invested in her relationship with her gay husband. I'll give it away. He's been accused of sexual misconduct, and there's a huge lawsuit happening that they're settling by younger men. And the drive of the person to not admit a failure, not admit their hypocrisy. It reveals itself in this moment where she has been asked by him to try and collect people during their relaunch by standing on the side of the road and doing a mime bit. So she finally storms off, and this whole big kind of reveal. Regina Hall has like this monologue about their relationship and how she stood by him in mime face. This is a really a great sort of pin on what this movie's trying to attempt to do about truth and reality and how you depict your own truth versus reality. That's where it's really sharp. Elsewhere, kind of just typical standard stuff.
Wait, so you're saying that like it turns into Age of Innocence at some point, where she's like the wife who stood by him and knew what was going on all along, and the facade is more important than the
yes
than the reality?
Yeah, it is very much like that. I think this character might be more, bless Edith Wharton, or in turn Scorsese and Jay Cox or whoever wrote that one. This character has some really incredible layers to her, whereas whatever Winona Ryder's up to is very good. In
Regina Hall, like you say, Regina Hall can never do. Like you give her the flimsiest stuff, and she does great stuff with it. So.
And she manages. You're sort of seeing the words on the page as she's doing it, but that is not her fault. And she gives it the conviction necessary to pull it off. And she nearly saves the thing. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It's based on a short by the Edo twins. They're young twins from Atlanta who grew up in the church, so they're very familiar with the whole, bless their hearts business and all this. and then drew the attention of Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw Productions, and made this feature. I'm excited to see what they could do next and get away from sort of more typical things, which this is. And then what was the other thing? Tell me about the the Good Boss, right?
Right. Yeah. That opened this past weekend here in St. Louis. I think maybe it's been an open week elsewhere.
That was shortlisted last year for Spain's Oscar submission, right?
Right. It was
over Parallel Mothers.
Yeah. So this is Fernando Leon de Aranoa, who's not a filmmaker I was particularly familiar with. Javier Bardem is the lead. He's obviously the marquee name, but if you do watch Spanish film, you'll recognize a lot of the secondary players. How to describe this? I really enjoyed it, but it is not necessarily, I think, a film that's for everyone. So the setup is that it takes place over a week in a Spanish town where the local economy seems to be dominated by this manufacturer of like precision scales, like scales and balances, industrial, like high precision stuff. I get the impression. And Javier Bardem is like the owner of the company. He inherited it from his dad. He's like the big mogul power player in town. And his company is up for some sort of regional award from the government, like some sort of business excellence award. And he's hyper focused on getting this award. And so like the story takes place over the course of a week, and it jumps around between all these different characters, employees and their families and other people sort of on the margins of this company, and watching over the course of the week as like the facade of this company that's been built up as this very friendly, we're all one big family here, everything's perfect, this is a sort of ideal company and to work for. All of it sort of collapses over the course of 1 week in this sort of dark Coen-esque comedy of error sort of situation. It's not exactly what you would call a funny film. Like I never laughed at it, but it is funny in its way. Like in a sense of watching like horrible people like scramble around trying to cover their asses and just making one bad decision after the other. Everything kind of comes together in this perfect storm of awfulness. So you have to sort of like the fact that there's not really anybody particularly likable in the cast, but it does sort of function as an overall sort of caustic capitalist critique combined with a general like skewering of the wealthy and the industrial class. I enjoyed it a lot. Javier Bardem playing a little bit against type, like playing in his like debonair, very poised mode, but then watching him like come unraveled over the course of the movie as all his best laid plans come apart. Most of it by his own, like not not by his own doing. Like part of his thing is that he like creeps on all the young interns at his company, and all that comes back to bite him in the ass. And
did you see Official Competition?
No, you were talking about that a few weeks ago, I think, right? Which is
Yeah.
like a satire of like awards, international film,
more
awards.
art filmmaking, but what you're describing, that they were on the festival circuit around the same time. And a lot of people, when Good Boss was for some reason chosen over Parallel Mothers' Spain submission, I'm sure there were a lot of great films that year from Spain. A lot of people were confusing them, probably because of the connection to Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem, the connection being marriage. Said that like that.
Having still not seen Parallel Mothers, I can say I can see why this film was picked by Spain as their submission, because it very much feels like here's a movie about Spanish, like critiquing Spanish society in 2021, and all of its foibles and problems sort of laid bare in one little like self-contained character drama.
Yeah, that was the thing about Official Competition that I didn't like. And that movie is LOL funny to me. I thought it was fucking hilarious. Was that it was too ambitious in what it was trying to say about art and the maker and the audience and everything too. But I would still recommend it too. It sounds like they might make a good double feature.
Yeah, I really like this one. I didn't feel like the sort of commentary aspects of it were heavy-handed, because it's such a self-contained story. Takes place over exactly 1 week, and the stakes are very simple. It's will they win the award or not? And it has that. There is. You brought up Christopher Guest earlier. It has a little bit of the Christopher, even though it's done as a straight scripted, traditionally shot drama. It has a little bit of that Christopher Guest satirical feel to it. Like the stakes are very simple and straightforward, and you're just sort of watching everything fall apart for this company over the course of 7 or 8 days.
Well, I think we should move on to see a couple fall apart in a very short time. It's my pick for our new miniseries. Welcome back from vacation. Everyone is so well rested from vacation.
Are we?
It's Nora Ephron's Heartburn. You like how I said it's Nora Ephron's Heartburn? Because it is. It is. All right, let's get into it.
Meryl Streep.
I'm a vicious person.
Jack Nicholson.
How would you like to go someplace and have a drink?
They have all the right ingredients
When we're married, I want this once a week.
for the perfect marriage.
It's not funny.
Yes, it is. What do you think?
It's going to be beautiful.
Ooh, baby. Not necessarily in your lifetime.
Heartburn.
Kayla, I think like the genesis for this series started with you talking about how much you love Nora Ephron. I know you wrote a piece for us, I think maybe last year, that sort of reviewing some of, maybe it was 2 years ago, reviewing some of like Nora Ephron's whole filmography, both as a writer and a director, and the things that sort of her 5 high points in her career. And you've talked about her and 19 Myers before. So could you give us some like insight into why their films are important to you, why this is a good basis for a new series?
Well, yeah, I feel like they don't get enough credit as other auteurs or other, like the men that they were competing with, I guess, at that same time. Even though they very much are, and I feel like they are kind of like receiving some credit, or people are like more aware of their films now, but I feel like it's not regarded in the same way as like Spielberg or Scorsese, which they for sure should be, because they're just as great, if not, with like their attention to everything and their scripts and their direction, like they're on that same level, and they should be regarded as.
And weirdly, like maybe not even at the same level as like more contemporary female auteurs.
Yeah.
You don't hear them mentioned the same breath with Sofia Coppola or Kelly Reichardt.
And it's Claire because Denis. Of the type of films that they make. But that's the whole, the auteur theory is a policy of looking at film through the lens of the director is the author. Their body of work chronicles their preoccupations, their worldview, both in an aesthetic sense and a thematic sense. And maybe those are exactly the same thing. And it's because Nora Ephron makes female-focused films and is probably unjustly known as a quote-unquote rom-com director when that's not really largely what she's done. And then Nancy Meyers is, you know, like a rom-com director, but someone who makes rom-coms that are really nuanced and really interesting beneath their sort of perfected, renovated kitchen surfaces. And, you know, it's an interesting that I think their reputations are coming around too, but it's like you said, it's still not in the same sense of Sofia Coppola. Denis.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like surface level. With
right, because because of the thing that I say is like, oh, Nancy Meyers is so in control of every aspect of her film. She's an auteur. That's not really what that means. You know, I don't know. So I thought it was a really great idea to talk about the films of both of them, because don't you feel like they're often conflated with each other, and that's not really right to happen?
I feel like people maybe like regard Nora like a little bit higher than Nancy because of like her career pre filmmaking, and with Nancy, I feel like they kind of like more pick up on like her set or like her aesthetic with like the coastal grandmother. Like that's a big like trend right now. So I mean, I feel like
sweaters.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't know if I can ever like really articulate my feelings, but like it's like they're making jokes, and I know they're coming from like a good place, but still it's like that's not what their films are all about. Like there's so much more if you really like look into it and really like sit with it and process and like read and research and all of that. So it's more than just like the cable knit sweaters or like the beautiful like sets and all of that. Like of course that adds to it, but again, it's so much more than that once you really like, you know, go further into who these women are.
Meyers in particular is really interesting to me because I love Douglas Sirk. And I think you can draw, not to like, you know, of course, like I have to bring up a man in this conversation, but quote unquote, making women's pictures, women's melodramas. Her films are ostensibly women's pictures. I did scare quotes, so no one can see that. But they're films with sort of plasticine surfaces, but they're really after and sort of critiquing the lifestyle and how the lifestyle informs decision and choice. Even when she leans into, you know, even the lighter side of something like that. And I'm thinking of The Intern in particular. The Intern has like, and we won't get into it because that's Kayla's choice. The Intern has just this huge reserves of humanity and understanding about generational conflict. And even when that silly scene where they're stealing the laptop or whatever. Yeah. We'll get into it. Andrew, what's your relationship to these filmmakers?
Yeah, I think particularly with, it's interesting. We talked about like how they maybe weren't necessarily well regarded right out of the gate the way some of their male contemporaries and male forebears were, because I think particularly with Nora Ephron, I thought some movies were directed by Nora Ephron that were directed by men, which I think, to her credit, speaks to her brand or her influence or her voice, like her voice. That like, man, I thought for sure she directed that. Nope, she just wrote it. Or maybe in some cases there were some films that she wasn't involved in at all that I thought were Nora Ephron films. Which, again, that's on me because I wasn't my cinematic literacy, but it's also, I think, speaks to like the sort of cachet that she had for a particular kind of movie in the 70s and 80s, in particular. With Nancy Meyers, I kind of like only became aware of her as the Parent Trap lady, the father of the bride, and we'll get to Parent Trap in our next episode, but I only knew her as the Parent Trap lady or the father of the bride remake lady. And it was only after I went back and started looking at her filmography recently, I was like, wow, she made some really interesting films that I had no idea that she was associated, or she at least wrote some. I think Parent Trap was her directorial debut, but she even before that, she wrote some really interesting films. She co-wrote Jumping Jack Flash, which is like one of my favorite Whoopi Goldberg films. Baby Boom, which I think is like my favorite sort of later period Diane Keaton film. So like she's had a hand in a lot of stuff, but I think maybe the popular perception, and again, this is on me, was that she was the Father of the Bride remake lady. Like that was what she was known for. And then, as you guys intimated, she sort of later became known for these romantic comedies sort of set in upper middle class to upper class suburbia. But it is interesting, you guys mentioned like to the extent to which maybe neither Ephron nor Meyers really fits the stereotype of what we think of when we think of like a post 2000s rom-com, certainly. Like if you look at what's actually in their films, we have this idea of what the rom-com tropes are, but interestingly, those are not the tropes that characterize Ephron and Meyers' films.
If I could make a weird analogy, it's sort of Halloween is to all the slashers, and so retroactively Halloween is those things, like Final Girl, or the Virgin First Kill. All of these things is like, I might have written the text on the thing, but I didn't mean for it to become text. And Nora Ephron in particular is really odd that we associate her with romantic comedies, and I understand why. I'd say that 3 biggest films she's associated with definitely fall into the genre.
Yeah, the big 3.
The big 3. So, Kayla, let's see if we agree. Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail. We are not covering You've Got Mail, but I think You've Got Mail is very close to a perfect movie. That's like, for me, one of the most pleasurable in the genre, and there's not much that competes until you start like really digging backwards, modern romantic comedies, I guess.
I'll take Carrie Met Sally of those 3s over either of those 2 any day, but that's just
me. That's my ranking. Like, it's been Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, and then Sleepless, but I would say You've Got Mail is my favorite, like, fully Nora production, like, as the writer and director, like, that's my favorite.
In a remake of a film that a lot of people would say didn't need to be remade, but it still turned out great.
I like better. Sorry,
you like better than Shop Around the Corner.
Lubitsch Heads. Yes, I do. I think that's the Ephron of it all, in that she likes her cookies with a little arsenic.
Well, to that end, are we going to talk about the film we're actually going to talk about today?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So it's Heartburn.
So this is your pick, right, Josh?
This is my pick. Yes.
Yeah.
So I could have picked Harry Met Sally, a film I love too. Kayla, please don't hurt me. I don't love Sleepless in Seattle. I think it's good. I think it's a very good film.
Oh yeah, me too. I would say I feel similar. Like, I like it a whole lot, of course. But yeah, like, if I had the choice to choose between like When Harry Met Sally and You've Got Mail, like, I'm gonna choose one of those.
Yeah, me too.
But like, I'd still rather watch it than like Endgame or like any of the other like new Marvel movies that are out. Yeah.
Yes, because it's like I said, I mean, it's such a kind of like things that seem like they should clash in Nora Ephron's really great films are married in such a way. Oh, am I about to get to a cooking metaphor? It's a Nora Ephron series, a cooking metaphor. No, it's like, the sweet and the acid and all of it just seems to come together really well. And I think the stuff in Sleepless in Seattle does, marry really well. But You've Got Mail has such this like really sharp and biting critique of capitalism and, capitalism in the 90s with this sheen of like, 40s upstart shit. And then we see exactly how that bears out in that film and how she sort of predicts that particular industry that she's, making a film about. And then representing that by these two individuals and how they're oil and water and how they eventually come to some sort of mix. But let's talk about Heartburn. I think Heartburn is kind of often lost in the conversation about Nora, which is odd because it is the film that is most expressly autobiographical. And it could be that it wasn't really well received. Even though it has two major stars and two people who are still major stars, even though Nicholson isn't working, Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep playing a couple. Yeah, it didn't get great reviews. Ebert was kind of a jerk about it. Pauline Kael was also a jerk about it. I picked this because it helps us dig into the biography of Nora Ephron, but it also, I think, is an early marker of what she's always up to and the spice of life that she always conjures up is on display here. I don't love this movie. I like it. I like the second half of it a lot more, but I'd seen it before. It was forgettable to me. And then I got into the Nora Ephron. Kayla was helping me in my Ephron journey. And I read the book it's based on, which is an autobiographical tale of her divorce from Carl Bernstein, the Washington Post journalist. A friend of ours, I told him that we were doing this, and he said, there's a deep throat joke somewhere in there. So I'll let you guys guess who that was. Yeah. Going back to it, I appreciated it so much more, and getting the Nancy out of it. It's her, what? Kayla, you're going to have to help me on some facts. It's her second screenplay, right? After Silkwood.
Yeah.
And very different film than Silkwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Pauline, was it Pauline Kael who called this like a light film or like without teeth or something? I'm like, what the fuck did she watch? Maybe she should have watched it again, but she refuses. Help me untangle early Nora. Like, her parents were screenwriters. And a little factoid I didn't know before we started doing this was that Jimmy Stewart and Sandra Dee film, Take Her, She's Mine, where Sandra Dee is Jimmy Stewart's daughter and she goes to college, but, calamity ensues, is actually written by the Ephrons, Nora's parents, and based upon their experience with Nora going to college.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's really cool. But they were behind a lot of great rom-coms at the time. They had a hand in Desk Set, the Tracy Hepburn vehicle, but Nora seemed to emerge very young as a great journalist.
Journalist.
And where did she write?
She interned for John F. Kennedy, and she was a writer at Newsweek. And then after quitting Newsweek, she got a job at the Post.
Oh.
And
Is that where she wasn't allowed to write but could work in the mailroom?
Yeah, that was at Newsweek, and then the revolt. There was like a whole was it an Amazon Prime show?
Oh yes.
A Good Girls Revolt.
Mm-hmm.
And then so after she rewrote the script for All the President's Men with Carl, and that kind of prompted her career in screenwriting.
Yeah, that's how she ended up with the Silkwood job, right? Even though it was sometime later, that would have been 7 years later, that the movie was released.
Yeah, because that was was it 83, and this was mid-70s, so.
So did they start their relationship, her and Carl Bernstein, during the write of All President's Men? Do you know?
I think it was before that.
But because of her...
Because they were, I think it was before that, or maybe around the same time. They had a very tumultuous relationship as seen in Heartburn.
So...
I was going to say, it's really interesting to think about how their relationship was covered in the tabloids, because you wouldn't think two journalists would be all over
it was a different era, man.
Right. So it's just so interesting that is what happened with their relationship. And also too, we can talk, I don't know if we're ready to talk about this, but I did know that when they separated, Carl actually got script writing privileges for Heartburn. So I know that Nora, she did not like the ending of Heartburn, because he got to have the final word on what it was, since
it was in their divorce.
Yeah, it was in
it was a term in their divorce.
Yeah.
Was Heartburn, the film about their divorce.
Right.
The film itself is a really kind of complicated mire of emotions and everything. But once you start digging in behind the scenes, wait, so the actual divorce, this was a huge thing in it, a film adaptation of this book. The book sort of really even elevated her. She was already a popular essayist, journalist, and known for doing her kind of thing that everyone had on her was the cooking and the recipe bits, and sort of the making that into biography. She's the person who sort of opens up food writing culture. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And it's not
and it's interesting that, it's interesting that she made her character in the film is I guess somewhat close to her own biography. They don't specify it's the New York Times, but it's implied that she's a food writer for the New York Times.
Yeah.
But the man who becomes her husband, played by Jack Nicholson, is a Washington writer, but he's not a journalist. He's not a muckraker like Bernstein was. He's an opinion writer, and he does in the film what Nora herself was kind of famous for, which is taking passing incidents in her own life and turning them into columns and elaborating on that to make some statement about a larger trend. I don't think we mentioned it previously, but she was a writer for Esquire. She was kind of known as the in-house women's issue writer at a men's magazine, which is an interesting post for her.
Yeah, and all of her films seem to deal with gender parity or battle of the sexes, or however you want to term it. And this film in particular is, the swapping of these biographical elements to sort of look at them on the outside is one interesting facet of it. If you know those things, the first time I saw it, I didn't. Second time I did. So I was recognizing the sort of the way this is as autobiographic filmmaking, and how that compares to other great, I don't know, Fassbinder, how much his life was a part of his work. Because often we all like to say, separate the art and the artist, or artist intent to the wind, or anything like that. But this is really, I think, enriched by knowing some of these things. Yeah. And the one thing I really like about the divorce and Heartburn being a part of it itself is that Mike Nichols was a signatory on their divorce papers.
Oh, that's perfect.
So she makes Silkwood and is nominated for an Oscar. And this film starring Meryl Streep, this is a film about Karen Silkwood, who exposed some great misconduct within the what is it, nuclear, what does she do?
Nuclear fuel. Yeah.
Yes.
A movie made in 1983, but still feels like a 70s film. Like it feels like a film that should have come out 5 years earlier.
Yeah, and it found Mike Nichols coming back from a real fallow period. There's some interesting bits, not that there aren't enough words about Nora Ephron by Nora Ephron out there, but there are interesting bits about Ephron and Nichols' working relationship and friendship in Mark Harris's book that recently came out about Mike Nichols. I forget what it's called.
I've read that. Yeah.
So shortly after that, she's got the Oscar. She's got a lot of cachet. And it's while all of this is happening, does Bernstein end up she discovers he's having an affair with a former prime minister's daughter.
Yes. The daughter of, her name was Margaret Dray, and she is the daughter of British Prime Minister James Callaghan and wife of the U.S. ambassador to the UK.
Oh, man.
What balls, Carl Bernstein? I guess if you get a president impeached, you think you can get away with quite a bit of stuff.
It does explain why, like, the other woman in the Heartburn is like a socialite / diplomatic corps woman who shows up, I think, like once or twice, and then we don't ever really actually see her again.
Thelma Rice is such a good, like, the other woman name. Because it's just like, it just has a nasty bite to it. So Heartburn becomes a pretty popular novel. It's structured differently than what the film is. The film is linear from they meet, fall in love. She has reservations. I love the cold feet scene where Meryl's just like in the bedroom and people start popping in because they're tired of waiting as Jack Nicholson's just at the altar. And she just has a series of conversations about having her cold feet. And then towards the book meets Caleb. How was the book structured?
I read it like 4 or 5 years ago, but
yeah,
I know that they're a lot more focused on, or it's a lot more focused on her like career, and it even has like recipes like sliced in like with it. So I know it's a lot more like heavy like on that, whereas the film is not really like but like you don't really know. Like I kept being like, wait, what is her job again? Or, like not really, like they talk about it, but it's not as prominent as it is in the novel.
It's a really weird choice. I get why they might feel as if that isn't as compelling. Don't you feel that the Nora Ephron of Julie and Julia would have made a more faithful adaptation of her own work? And like, I'm not going to say this film is sort of like pedestrian at all, but there are a couple glimpses of like when she's watching the television is telling her own story. Yeah. This is like very Nora Ephron thing to do in her writing.
I love those sequences.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Those are my favorite bits. Masterpiece Theater telling her what's going on in her life.
It could have to do with the fact that, like, I know Mike had to convince Nora to do the movie. I don't think she really wanted to. So that coupled with the fact that, you know, she didn't really have much say in like her own like life story, I could see her at that point just kind of writing it off and acting like, you know, like it is what it is. So because like she had her novel, she had her words, like that was her truth. So
Mm.
I could see with like the film
But
her
you could definitely see like a 25 years later Nora Ephron, if she had delayed them, if the movie had been delayed 25 years and then she'd able to make it sort of as a
Yeah.
director, it might have had a very different shape. I can see what Josh is saying.
Sure,
I think
yeah.
of it something, I can see something like closer to, and it has some of the same sort of acidic spirit as this, as Waitress, where how closely food is tied into the relationship drama, thematically, if not necessarily narrative.
What I want is the Fosse Verdon to all that jazz. Like, I want to see the fictionalized version of the making of this fictionalized version of her life is what I want. So, but that's my idea. So it stays here and then we'll sell it later as a lens for the lens production. Yeah.
Well, and Josh, you talked earlier. I mean, I guess this is a full spoilers podcast, so we could talk about the plot. But you talked earlier about how there's a definite like tartness to Ephron's voice that sort of predominates throughout, even like her movies that are considered much more quote unquote safe and soft and cozy, like say You've Got Mail, that she has a tartness about her style, about her voice. I think you can see like the genesis of that here, not just in terms of, oh, this is the first time you've seen it, but I think if you look at like the events and where this film takes place, not just in her biography, but in the history of like American family life and American women's place in America, in like this movie is taking place at a very specific moment in 1980s when like divorced, particularly like divorced middle to upper class American women were realizing like their independence and having sort of that their, you know, the primitive version of their I'm gonna do it my way moment, you know.
Yeah, and like you can work and have a family, and you can, you know, do all these things and have children. So
but there's
Yeah,
also
it's all
something very
very-
specific. But there's also something very specific about, and maybe I'm just saying this as like a late Gen X kid whose mom got divorced in the early 80s, and had to be a single mom. Like there's something very specific about like just the fed upness with the philandering man and how little respect that she's given, and how she's been, you know, she's kicking herself by the end. I mean, she's mad at him, but she's also kicking herself by the end of the film for sort of falling for his bullshit over and over again. And there's a real sort of, particularly in that final stretch when she gets on the plane with her two kids and says, I'm done. Like there's a real, it feels like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, of course Carly Simon is singing the theme song for this, because who else would it be at this moment with these shoulder pads and Meryl Streep on the plane with the two kids being a single mom? Like it's something, it feels so much of its moment. It's sort of, it feels like it crystallizes something about being a woman about being a mom and a married woman and post-married divorced woman in the 1980s.
yeah,
I mean, it is.
I'm probably doing a bad job of articulating it. It's just
No, I
something
know
that
what you mean.
makes sense.
I recognize from like seeing my own mom and seeing my own experience, my own mother's experience with that. It feels very familiar.
If an unmarried woman, is that the Paul Mazursky? An unmarried woman wasn't like the poster child for second wave feminism, like white American second wave feminism, which is all just an oxymoron anyway. This might be that, or maybe even the book was that, which isn't really a critique because it's her experience. I think the book is a lot richer when it comes to those ideas because you are rooted exclusively in her experience. Mike Nichols, that was a point of contention between Nora Ephron and Mike Nichols, who would also direct this one. He directed Silkwood, and Mike Nichols is having a bit of a comeback after real bad period in late 70s. And, you know, the next thing he does is another Nora Ephron script. He tries to have his cake and eat it too. They had an argument about the Jack Nicholson character, I forget his name in it. The Carl Bernstein character,
Mark Foreman, a cop, very cop
Foreman.
name.
Oh my God! About him,
I should interject. I think he's supposed to be like a Robert Novak analog. Like he seems like a right. They don't explicitly say it in the film, but he seems like he's a right winger. He's an opinion column. Used to be an opinion columnist for the Washington
I'm
Post.
glad I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you can see the Reagan shrine. By the way, did you see the Reagan shrine in his house?
Oh my God, no! I never noticed that.
There's a scene where we're over. I think it's where he's like using the Bowflex or whatever. They pan over across his fireplace, and he has like literally a shrine with newspaper clippings and memorabilia to Ronald Reagan on top of his fireplace. And I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about this guy. Even if it wasn't played by Jack Nicholson, I wouldn't trust him at this point.
But yes, that's exactly the point. Is that Mike Nichols was saying we don't know enough about this character, and Nora Ephron says Meryl Streep talks about this in Everything is Copy, the documentary Nora Ephron's kids made about her and her career that's available on HBO Max. Meryl Streep is sharing the story about the fight they were having, and Nora Ephron says, if you were making a film about someone who was hit by a bus, you wouldn't make the bus half the film. And Heartburn, he's not really a person. He's a person from exclusively her perspective. So her experiences with him. So you get just glimpses, and it's sort of the climax of the film. She gives this monologue about how you invest your time in a person. You think you understand them, you live with them, you partner with them, you have children with them, but you don't really ever understand them until they do something that really shows you who they are. Now it's like an indictment of that character and Carl Bernstein. I can see why he was upset about it, but that's where the film excels for me, because the first half of this film is all fucking lead up for like 50 minutes. I looked at the clock this time. It doesn't get revealed until about halfway into the film that he's cheating.
Yes, and that's where it's not the same as the novel, because the novel is just like right away, where like in the film, she's in the hair salon, you know, hearing about another
great
scene, and then she's like, oh, okay, like I'm listening. And yeah, so that's where, you know, again, it's not the same as the novel.
Let me ask then, do we think that some of that is sort of an expectation of audience meta-awareness, that people at the time would have known that this is an autobiographical story and known that there was a messy divorce? So like they went into it, that maybe that first 45 to 50 minutes feel a little bit more pregnant with tension or something, because the audience would have absolutely known, the contemporary audience would have absolutely known, oh crap, I'm watching a movie about Nora Ephron's infamously messy divorce. So like, I'm just waiting for it to happen. And so it adds some sort of, I don't know, tension or emphasis or something to like all the
context.
Context for scenes like, you know, arguing about their contractor and like the back and forth about kids, and like her, particularly like we mentioned earlier, her agony, like her cold feet agony at the altar. Like the reason that isn't just the reason it isn't, I mean, it's a funny scene and edited very funnily too. Like Mike Nichols is using his usual editor there, and it works really great. But also like you, the audience, are kind of going, like I can feel how bad this is, because I know, like, not only meta awareness, but like we're aware, but we're also like feeling for her. We're going, you should have listened to yourself. Like there's a reason that Cold Fate probably is this bad. It's because it probably wasn't the right move for you, honey.
But you think you can convince them.
I can fix it. I can fix it.
You think that you can fix it, and you're like, no, girl, you cannot fix it. You cannot.
And how much you're speaking from experience,
Kayla. And how much of it is really not even how much I can fix him, because I don't think we know enough about Mark to know like necessarily all bad or all good guy right out of the gate. Only the meta awareness of where the story going tells us that. It's more like they talk a lot about the institution, right? Like there's a lot of this very 80s talk about, you know, post-sexual revolution talk about like what the F is marriage, like why do we do this? What's the point? Like, why do we enslave ourselves to one person? And that's the parlance that they use, to this one person. Like, what is the point of this delusion? So like, it isn't even so much her convincing herself that she's in love with Mark. It's almost like she's convincing herself that marriage is not a huge, gigantic mistake. And she has experience because they've both already divorced.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they should know better. Like, fool me once, shame on me.
Yeah, that's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over
Right.
and expecting different results.
So, Kayla, what do you think about, like, we mentioned earlier that great scene with the beauty salon? We need more screenwriters who have the confidence to make an unrelated subplot about a barely glimpsed character trigger a mental snap for another character and then kick off a plot. I love that device. I think more screenwriters should use it. I love the way she uses that here.
Yeah.
But there's that, like, what do we think about the whole scene where there's a whole sequence really where she basically just flees to her dad's apartment in New York and sort of puts herself in a holding pattern, waiting for him to reach out.
Yeah. So you're asking what I think about that?
Yeah, because that's like maybe a part where I maybe snagged a little bit on it, because maybe it's a realistic portrayal of what she actually did and what actually happened to her. But I felt like you almost want to throttle her and say, why are you like sort of just waiting for him to call?
And again, I think that just goes back to, like, I think that in any situation, especially like a marriage, like, you convince yourself that like this time, like, you will be the one that will change his mind. You will be the one that he'll end it all for. Like, he'll end up, like, you won't have to cheat anymore. You won't have to sneak around. And so, I guess once she made that commitment, she's like having to, like, also, like, the fact that like she wasn't listening to herself. Like, she should have. It's kind of like it was all right there. Like, you just should have listened to yourself, but you were so like blindsided, I guess, or again, you thought this time it would change. You thought you would be the one, and so like having to like reconcile with like all of that, but like you still like it's kind of like it's just kind of like, how do I want to put it? Like, you are realizing that like you are worth enough, but then at the same time, like, if like you want him to call, if he had just called, like, that would cure everything and you would feel that like your relationship would be fine. You just have to kind of like, I think she's like going through like, having to like radically accept like this is what it is. He cheated,
It's like grief.
Yeah.
It's,
it is. But then also at the same time, like, she made a commitment to this person. She loves this person. They, have children. She's pregnant. Like, she feels like, I guess in that situation, her mindset is like, yeah, if he just calls, if he sends her, like, she thought that like it was him that he sent the roses, and like seeing that all play out.
God,
it's great. It's like, I have been in situations like that too, where you're like, wait, you think, oh, this is it, whatever.
they feel what I want them to feel.
Yeah.
I do like Rachel's like character trait. And I don't know if Nora Ephron is writing this to reflect herself or what, but like there's a blander protagonist in there that doesn't do what Rachel does, which is she has this weird habit of like saying outrageous lies just on the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Just to throw like a match on the gasoline just because she can.
It's all
which
in the
makes
book
her makes
too,
her more which makes her much more interesting, I think.
The book, it has like fantasies. So the I don't know that we explicitly said, it's like it is the same story, but it starts pregnant and he's cheating. Yeah. And then she has sort of like flashbacks and fantasies. And like Kayla mentioned, there's like interpolations of Nora Ephron's work that she did, which is like recipe as personal essay within it. And the name Heartburn makes a lot more sense whenever that's fleshed out well. But
like,
you really
like, she gets off the plane pregnant, and she, like, the ending of the novel, she runs home and then finds that he's having a parent looking through the drawers for like the receipts.
Yeah, it's like two parallel tracks of
And
I
then,
should have known. I
yeah,
should have known. And like, so with, I think maybe that's why the second time having the knowledge of all of it works. And what you said, Andrew, like everyone having a meta awareness of it and being like, oh no, don't do it, girl. Don't do it, girl. I already did it. That knowledge, but that's a miscalculation because it is 2022 and there are 3 people in a room who know that, and it's us. You
Right.
know?
Well, and there's like I mentioned before that like she runs with New York, and there's a sense in which she's trying to like reconnect. Like she does all the things to reconnect to who she was before she met Mark, right? She goes back
Right.
to New York. She moves into her dad's apartment. Who's
Daniels.
that? Who's that? Yeah,
Jeff
she-
Daniels
she-
isn't
Yeah.
her dad. Sorry.
yeah,
She goes
the
back
great
to
Stephen
her
Bell is
editor.
her dad, who like kills it in like 2 scenes. Jeff Daniels, who like for my money, not being a straight, despite being a straight guy, I would rather get with Jeff Daniels with suspenders and 1980s get up than Jack Nicholson any day.
He
Um,
is so cute. Yeah, that's the
So
thing. It's
earnestly cute, So
And
obviously infatuated with her.
this is, if you notice, like this is the last film she writes about like divorce. Like this,
Mm.
like after this, like she doesn't write about it anymore.
Mm-mm.
Well, she's done. She said all she had to
Yeah.
say.
Right. And she embraces that sort of like what she calls about herself, saying like it's the like romanticism only a cynic is capable of. We see much more of the romanticism in her later films.
But
which
again,
I-
it's always like so sour too.
well, right, and I would just find that so interesting about her.
Mhm.
Was an extremely liberal woman, just like that classic New York wealthy liberal journalist type. But most of like her movies are rooted in this sort of conservative vision of romance.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like, is that what ends up happening when you go through something so like your idealized vision of a person gets so publicly exploded?
Right.
Well, so, and social, even beyond the personal, socially, like you could argue that that's like what a lot of women of her generation had to go through that at some point, because they were raised on the second wave feminist ideals that they tried to live, but in some level that they still had that romantic vibe, that romantic impulse that felt unsatisfied or unfulfilled, or not, the world didn't live up necessarily to that romantic longing that they had. And maybe that there's an attempt to thread a needle after this in her work. And again, we could talk about it when we hit the second film of hers, but an attempt to thread the needle between staying true to those like post second wave feminist ideals, but also making space emotionally in herself for romance, for idealism, for the idea of connection, true connection, not just superficial connection, but a true intimate connection with somebody. I do think it's like weird that like part of what like I think plays a little different in 2022 is that if you watch this film, like you watch a film about infidelity, like I think a lot of marriage counselors would have a different view, like a less absolutist view of it. Like that one guy cheating once is like recoverable. Like some people don't want anything to do with that. They just get divorced. But some people do want to like try to work through that. Like infidelity isn't considered immediately marriage destroying necessarily the way it would have in 1983. But it's like, it's not just that he cheated, it's the contempt. Like, so part of it is, and it takes her maybe like the second time to get there, but it's present from the first time. It's that he left the receipts just laying around where she could easily find them. Like, it wasn't just that he cheats, it's that through the cheating, through the cavalierness with which he does it, that his wallet, which she could look through at any time, is stuffed with receipts for hotels and meals and flowers for the other women. It's the contempt that brazenness shows to her. And it's not until she has the second revelation at the jewelry store, another great moment where like something clicks for her, where she realizes he's never going to change. Like, and I should have known he was never going to change because he has no respect for me. He has like, his behavior is showing this contemptuousness for me. And that to me is like almost more damning than the initial act of infidelity. Like that shows that he never gave a shit about her.
Right.
And I like
not
that
in the way, at least not in the way he should have.
I like that it's Jack Nicholson, and that you also do not really ever get a full picture of Mark as a person unless it's through her eyes. Because Jack Nicholson, as a star, as a performer, carries with him a like rebel spirit or this sort of insidious quality to him. I mean, it's like 3 years after The Shining, so he had really taken a hard left, you know. But we have to talk about Meryl Streep in this, and the key to why she works so well, pretty much always, but especially in more populist fare. Although I don't know that she's made films that wouldn't be considered that. Is the scene where she goes and finds the receipts, and takes the drawer into the bathroom after he comes in because they're expected at a dinner party or something, and she turns the shower on because she's wanting to kind of like obscure the fact that she has just discovered this. But then as he comes in, she flings the door open. Just clapped for a podcast, sorry. Flings the door open, all the steam comes out, and she comes out like a fucking mad woman emerging from a volcano
like
with
a demon in a Japanese opera or something.
Right, exactly. And she is so funny because she is a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
And her hair still up.
Her hair
like,
is still
incomplete.
half done from the salon, and she drops the receipts and she drops to her knees. And I laughed. And it doesn't take Meryl Streep but like a millisecond to flip a switch and say, like, how could you do this to me so brazenly in front of my face? It's like a stab in your heart when she does that. And the flexibility that she has as a performer to be able to flip that switch and have you invest in this person that she, as a performer, is so clearly invested in and understands. It's just remarkable. I just spent a minute praising Meryl Streep. No one needed to do that, but I just think she's so good. For the film's failings, I'm sorry, I think it's on a script level. And even though, you know, Nora gets credit for it, like you said, Kayla, like, there's a lot of forces that are kind of shaping this thing too. Yeah. I think that's the failure of the film. She really gets it though. She understands the character of Rachel, or she understands Nora Ephron really well and her experience.
Yeah, and I think it's telling in that moment, like Jack Nicholson. I mean, we know it's not Jack Nicholson, it's Mark, quote unquote, Mark Foreman, but it's Jack Nicholson. Like, he just wilts when she comes at him in that scene. He doesn't even have a response. He's just like,
doesn't even try.
I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
Shit.
I think that's what he says. Well,
right
shit. Yeah, and he gets up and says, I can't deal with this right now. Ooh, I wanted to come through the television. You're about to fucking deal with it right
But there's a different script, right? There's a more melodramatic script. And it's weird to say that about this film, but there is a more melodramatic version where that becomes like a 5-minute fight scene. But he just like, he has no response. He just like, well, I've been caught.
Shit. Right. Can we talk about supporting players in this too? Because it's like a murder's row of really great actors.
Milos Forman randomly showing up with Catherine O'Hara's
boyfriend, partner, whatever they are, is played by Milos Forman. And they're such a, like, she is a Texas, I guess she's a gossip columnist, or at least has the megaphone in order to, like, later in the film, Meryl Streep uses her and tells her a lie about Jack Nicholson's mistress about her getting syphilis, something.
And some sort of
an infection or something, she says. Yeah, but she's like,
I never said herpes.
Never said it. I never said
herpes.
Right. Yeah. Is together with Milos Forman. It's just kind of wild. And then Maureen Stapleton is her group therapist. And she's lovely. She really only has a few lines. She's a presence in a lot of the rooms. Joanna Gleason she's like a Woody Allen player. Yeah. She's the very self-centered person who cannot wait to say what's wrong with her because she doesn't know whether or not to join Club Med, but Rachel needs to express that she's been cheated on. And once Rachel does that, she says, "Why is Rachel's life so much more interesting?"
I mean, it feels like a very New York therapy scene from everything that's the New York psychiatry scene from the 80s embodied in one like character moment, right? Stockard Channing,
so good. And I love the scene where Stockard Channing comes in during the cold feet business and it's like, I get it. He's kind of a bastard. Yeah. And I never expected this to happen. So I get why you're sitting in this room. However, I was looking at when Harry Met Sally was also nominated for Best Original Script and looking that Dead Poets Society one. That pisses me off.
You don't like Dead Poets Society?
Well, as a script, why wouldn't you vote When Harry Met Sally? But that year is killer. Wait, I have to look. At who else was nominated against Nora Ephron that year. When Harry Met Sally, Dead Poets Society, the winner, Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is objectively just like probably a better script than Dead Poets Society.
It's say what you want. I'm not going to defend Woody Allen, but it is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite film of his.
Same.
It's a great script.
Yeah, it's a great script, no matter what. Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Wow. I loved it. I love Dead Poets Society, but I cannot defend any of this.
And the fifth nominee, Do the Right Thing.
Wow. Any of those would have been, I still stand by Dead Poets Society, but any of those would have been better.
Like, why do
but Harry Met Sally is like the archetype, right? Like it's in my mind, it's the post-classic era text, I think, for the rom-com. And the fact that it was passed over is sort of weird.
And I don't think we'll get into it because what we're doing in this series is we've picked 2 Noras, 2 Nancys. So we're going to flip between them. I will spoil that the final episode will have our guest on, the executive director of Cinema St. Louis, Brie Maniscalco, has picked Julie and Julia. So we've got a gap, quite a gap, because Nora Ephron unfortunately passed away shortly after Julie and Julia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her most productive period is between this film and Julie and Julia. Her directorial feature, This Is My Life, I think is pretty underrated. If it's just not completely forgotten. That stars Julie Kavner as a mom of 2 young women, and Julie Kavner is trying to become a stand-up comedian. And it's about all of their lives. It's a very sweet and salty movie. And then, of course, she gets the gig for Sleepless in Seattle and becomes a filmmaker proper in her own way.
And I go to bat for her screenplay for My Blue Heaven, which is kind of a weird, still forgotten film, but I really love it. I've seen it way more times than I have any excuse to have seen.
Yeah, I think that's
Kayla, tell us what My Blue Heaven is.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. It's literally been. I was gonna say the first thing I ever saw of Nora Ephron was When Harry Met Sally, and then from that I watched My Blue Heaven with my grandparents and didn't even really know, I didn't even make the connection at that point until I became more aware of who Nora was, and I was like, okay, so it worked for all of us. It worked for me, it worked for my grandparents, we were all able to enjoy it. But it's basically
Rick Moranis who plays the FBI agent, right?
Oh yeah,
Steve Martin is the gangster.
Yeah, so he's the gangster, and
But you're burying the lead a little bit. Who's the gangster?
Oh, Vincent. How do you say his last name? Vincent D.
It's Goodfellas.
Yeah,
It is
right.
it is ostensibly a sequel to Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And she ends up in a relationship with Nicholas Pileggi, right?
I think
Yeah.
weren't they married for the
Yep.
rest of their
Until she
lives?
died.
Yeah.
She died 2012. They were
Yeah.
together. Yeah. Fascinating. And it came out the same year as Goodfellas.
Completely like weirdly like deep cast. William Hickey is in it. Bill Irwin. Like some great
Wild.
comedic actors. And the premise is so high concept and goofy, and the production design is a slightly like unreal Edward Scissorhandsy aspect to it. Just a weird film, but I weird film that I'll still love unreservedly.
Yeah, it's really odd that Goodfellas and its sequel came out in the same year, and everyone's forgotten about its sequel. It's not actually a sequel. Okay, whatever. All right, I think we should go to more fun facts. Kayla's got a game for us.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The game is called Nora or Nancy, and the premise is basically several actors have worked with Nora and Nancy over the years. How you'll play is you'll receive the name of one of these crossover actors and a couple quotes from either a Nora or Nancy film.
Okay.
So I'm going to say you can have 1 point if you know the writer, another point if you know the title of the film, and if the person, whoever's playing, if they are incorrect, the writer will be revealed and the other person will have a chance to steal a point
Oh man.
if they can get the title.
So excited.
Josh is gonna kick my butt at this.
Okay.
Don't think that.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Do you want to go first, Josh?
Sure.
Okay. So we have Steve Martin or Steve Martin. So the quote is, "Just remember that in every pothole there is hope."
Nancy, something's got to get. Not something's got to give. It's complicated. Oh my god.
No.
Fuck.
So Andrew, do you want to steal? Like, do you want to go in and say? And
I'll steal, but it's a complete wild ass guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna say this is actually Nora and it's mixed nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I forgot mixed nuts exist.
I know. I was gonna say we didn't talk about mixed nuts, but
You don't actually have to keep track of points. You know that.
I am.
I want the points.
The points don't matter.
Okay.
The points don't matter except to Josh.
So I guess we'll go with Andrew.
Okay. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay. So Diane Keaton or Diane Keaton. And the quote is, "Your heart attack could be the best thing that's ever happened to me."
Josh knows. Josh, do you know? That's so. I'm gonna say Nancy, and that's something's got to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Wow.
You were
okay.
you were purposely trying me. I know you were trying to do that. And
No, I wasn't.
No, Kayla. I feel like because I had in my head, there's no way that it's not hanging up.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, does Walter Matthau have a heart attack in that? Because I thought, oh, something's got to give. That's so obvious that it has to be hanging up. Ugh. I love this game.
Okay, Josh, here we go.
Okay. All right.
Your queen.
All right.
Is it Meryl Streep or Meryl Streep? I said there ain't no boys in home ec. The boys are in the science class.
I'm going to say that ain't is a clue. And I will say that it is Nora and Silkwood.
Yeah. Yes.
Good one.
Although that would have been a great Nora and Julia, but I don't see Julia Child saying ain't. Ain't.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew. So we have Jack Nicholson or Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
Well, if it's not my mother's house, then why are you talking to me like I'm your kid?
Well, that's Heartburn.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
It's a good line too.
It is a good line because it's like,
It's a great
fucking jerk.
Two married couples together, and one couple is very clearly like having tense times, and the way that Stockard Channing and Richard Mouse are just kind of like look away and pretend not to have heard that.
Right. It's like no one in the room wants to recognize what just happened. A bomb just went off in the room and no one wants to acknowledge it.
All right, Josh, I got another one for you from Queen Meryl. So
Okay.
Meryl or Meryl? Do you poke smut?
That's Nancy. It's complicated.
Yeah.
That's so cute. I love that scene where they're poking smut.
All right, last one for Andrew. Steve Martin or Steve Martin? I knew I'd never be able to remember what she wore that day, but I also knew I'd never forget the way she looked.
That's got to be Nancy, Father of the Bride.
Yeah, you guys are good at this game.
I'm better than I thought I was. I thought I was going to go down in flames on this.
Yeah. So Andrew won. But yeah,
Good job, Andrew.
had that little advantage.
I was gonna say that last one was actually Steve Martin and Shop Girl.
It could be.
Good job.
Yay. Oh my god, that was so much fun.
That's a good game
That's a good
design.
game.
We should use that. We should use this
Good
again.
game. Everyone
Yeah, we can.
stay prepared for actor or actor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we should
Dress.
make the dual director arc a recurring thing and come back to this game under that specifically.
Oh, did you just say we're doing Hitchcock and De Palma? Well,
We've already done Psycho. Do we really need
Andrew, we're about to do Hitchcock and De Palma. Don't forget.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We got a little over a month.
Yeah.
For sis-
I guess I should rewatch that at some point. Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
No.
I should rewatch that and a whole bunch of other like doppelganger horror to prepare my.
Ooh, yeah. You get all the doppelganger horror, and I get all the stupid De Palma facts. Okay. And we're just
You're gonna watch all the late model De Palma.
I've already seen them several times. We're gonna split the stage down in half, and you're gonna do doppelganger horror, and I'm gonna do De Palma.
Oh my
At
god!
the same
Should we
time.
dress this in? Should we dress this in?
Duh. As cute as we can make it, we're gonna.
Okay,
do
well,
it.
okay, then it's not gonna work.
This is Golden Anniversaries Sisters,
Yeah.
October 15th at the St. Louis Public Library.
We've never done this before. The dueling introduction / discussion. So we'll see how that works.
We're gonna see how it goes. Yeah. All right. Well, I think everyone has one more thing, right?
I'm probably just gonna do Southern Charm because that's all I've like really been able to
I'm
like.
gonna ask you about that. You didn't answer my text. What 2018 season?
Yeah.
Wait, back up. For those of us who are not in the know, what are we talking about?
So Southern Charm is a reality show on Bravo, and it chronicles like they kind of have like a rotating like main cast. But in the beginning, it was 5 like Charlestonians who like were very high up in like the society. So there was kind of like a mix of like people who had like the old wealth and were connected.
There's a lot of cotillions, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And then there were like some other cast members like Craig, who he doesn't come from money, but he went to law school and he's like in with the group. And Shep, he comes from old money, so like he doesn't really like have like a normal job. Like he just kind of humps around and he's able to like do what he wants. And it's just kind of like, you know, their life like any other like Bravo reality show where they're just all like, you know, just the ins and outs of
And what season is it on now?
right now it's on season 8. So season 8 has I think like 1 or 2 more episodes left, and then they usually do like a 2-part reunion. So I decided it's been on since 2014, 2013. And I remember watching like the first few seasons like when it was on, but I kind of missed like the middle. So I was like, I need to rewatch everything from the start. So that's what I've been.
Well, is it streaming somewhere?
I've been watching it. I have Sling, which is like a TV service provider. So they have it on demand, but I believe it's on like Peacock and like Bravo.
Well, if it's Bravo, wouldn't it be like on Discovery Plus or something? Aren't they a part of that?
Not right now.
That's NBC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
So-
Okay.
Yeah, so it's on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know it's on Peacock, and I'm sure it's on like the Bravo streaming like app too. But I don't know if you probably have to have like internet or.
But there's no like high concept. It's just like day in the life stuff
Yes,
about
like,
No, they're just rich jerks.
Yes.
wealthy Southern
Wealthy-
jerks.
Yes, exactly. They just like walk you through it. It's so interesting, and it's so.
Midnight in the Garden of Cattiness.
Yeah.
I have watched a little bit of it, and I'm sorry that Caleb, when we talked about it briefly like last week, there was a commercial for the upcoming season that played like an entire summer while I was watching Housewives or something.
Yeah.
And there is a line from this commercial probably like 3 years ago that became a meme, at least in my head. So, listeners, and I'm talking to my boyfriend downstairs, what was that? And while you were talking, I was trying to look through and see exactly what it is. But it is such a good like reality television.
Oh, Heady Little Bitch. Is it that one?
No.
Does that a lot.
No, but I like it. It's just a line that someone said. And because that commercial played like every commercial break.
There's a lot of good like one-liners. There's a lot.
Yeah, they're good for that.
I think it was like 2018.
Yeah, 2018, 2019.
Okay, so I'm on season. I'll finish season 3 probably today.
So it might have been around then, right?
Season 3, I think it was like 2016, 2017. So maybe it was probably like season 5.
I mean, in my head, it is in the pantheon of Bravo quotes, along with the only thing fake about me is my leg, or be cool, don't be all uncool, or how do you know what's good for me? It's my opinion.
These need to be stitched on like samplers, right?
Oh,
Hung over the kitchen.
I'm sure there's a few Etsy shops dedicated to this stuff.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That.
Anyway, I'll figure it out. Someone yell it at me, yell it at Kayla, yell it at Andrew, and keep doing it. Yeah. But Kayla, so if they need
Well, I was gonna say, I find out this. There's like a line. I just looked up like Southern Charm 2018 meme.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think it's this. Never mind. This was
Say it.
It was Thomas, but I don't think he was on the show in 2018.
No,
But
say it.
there's no way I can recover from this, but that's from
Pawn Stars, isn't it?
No, it's from Tiger King, where he was like,
Oh,
"There's no way I can financially recover from this." It was like all
No,
like
it's
old
not.
men when you leave the light
Yeah.
on.
that's a 2020. That's a
Yeah.
2020 meme. Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I'm sorry. It's a bit that my brain doesn't work well, so it works. But if people want to tell you what the line is, where can they find you?
They can find me on Letterboxd. I don't know if you can like private message anybody on Letterboxd or let them know, but just like comment on my last review, I guess, and let me know.
Yeah.
It's just my name, Kayla McCullough, and yeah.
Since they started letting TV on Letterboxd, is Southern Charm on there?
Only
I don't
limited
think-
series.
Only limited series.
I
Yeah.
was gonna
See,
say,
if we could,
if it were, I would feel a lot more like productive. Log it on Letterboxd.
Because then you're like making forward progress on something.
right. You know, if there were like Twitter discussions about whether Southern Charm is TV or film, it would be there.
The Twin Peaks return of Bravo reality
Yeah.
television.
That's
Right,
what it is.
exactly.
Um,
Southern Charm, the
Reddit
return.
or just sit on Reddit all day and just
I think this needs an essay, Kayla.
okay.
Kayla, let's tentatively pencil one in for late this year.
You know, we should
the
do-
Southern Charm as a 150-hour movie essay.
You know, Kayla, contributor to Bright Wall Dark Room, we should do like a month of just like Bravo television as our theme. And then I don't know what you'll write about, Andrew.
I mean, there's
Like,
a lot. I'm really
I don't know
excited
what's for
for
you.
like a lot that's coming out. So like I think tomorrow, September 5th, there's a new show called The Real Girlfriends in Paris, which looks really good.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know about that?
No, I haven't
Yeah.
watched Bravo in a while since I don't have cable. Like,
Oh,
I have to have
yeah.
intent in order to watch Bravo, and I've
Yeah.
just been out of it for a minute.
And then our favorite Real Housewives of Salt Lake City comes back at like the end of September. So I'm prepared. I'm staying.
I'm very excited. I've fallen off like you that day that I was sick from work and started watching Salt Lake and then proceeded to text you about it for 8 hours. Yeah. It's been a minute since Salt Lake, but I'm glad to see Jen really just thriving.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew, you got reality TV on the mind or not?
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm not
what do-
as big with reality as you guys are. I
What's
prefer,
your one more thing?
fantasy. Well, yeah.
Alright.
So in that vein, preferring fantasy, I finally bit the bullet and dove into binged my way through Netflix's new adaptation of The Sandman, Neil Gaiman's famous comic book series for DC Vertigo from the 90s. I was sort of hesitant about it as somebody who very much grew up with these comics. It was very formative to me, like a lot of 90s comics geeks who were also depressed teenagers. Sandman was a big deal. And so far, like I finished the first season, and I guess they have more planned. They did one season plus 2 sort of standalone bonus, quote unquote bonus eps, all very faithfully adapted from some of the initial arcs in the Sandman series. And they've been great. I was like very pleasantly surprised because they hold such a very fond place in my heart in terms of the original comics. I was very sort of tentative about them. Nothing specific about the productions that me worry. Just the idea of a Sandman adaptation has sort of something that's been lurking in development hell for 30 plus years. So I didn't quite know what to think about it, but it killed.
And this one has his blessing, right?
Yes, he's actually, I believe, he's not just like a consultant. I believe he's like a co-writer on most of the episodes, and he's been relentlessly promoting it. So he obviously has some sort of investment in it. The casting is great. I mean, if you don't know anything about Sandman, it actually works pretty good, like to just go in blind and have the show teach you about the mythology and what's happening. If you aren't a Sandman person, the Nickel version is that it's about these like personification of eternal forces called the Endless, or a series of siblings. They're like more powerful than gods who sort of rule over human reality. And particularly the titular character, the quote unquote Sandman, is Dream, the personification of Dream with a capital D, and about his travails. The whole series sort of gets kicked off by him being trapped by some occultists who managed to imprison him for 100 years of Earth's history. And he gets out basically in our contemporary time and is released and has to sort of wander the world, reclaiming all his artifacts and reasserting his power over the dream world. But it's Neil Gaiman, so
just like Kate and Leopold.
Yes, exactly like Kate and Leopold. But if you know Neil Gaiman, you know his sensibility. You have to be down for his like dark, slightly like melancholic, very earnest, but also slightly irreverent style. The casting is spectacular. They've used a lot of unknowns in sort of the key roles, which are interesting, so that we won't immediately be thrown off by famous faces. But a lot of the secondary roles are relatively well-known folks. David Thewlis is in it. Gwendolyn Christie playing Lucifer, which is awesome. Just some really cool casting choices. And I really like it as an adaptation. It is very, very faithful to the comics for the most part. Whole scenes of dialogue, whole sequences and stories are lifted straight. But the changes that they have made have generally been really good improvements. They definitely went a little bit more diverse with the casting. They've sort of gender and race bent some of the characters where it didn't really matter, and it's mostly been to its benefit. Kirby Howell-Baptiste plays Death, which I think is an awesome casting choice, and she absolutely kills it in her introductory episode. So she's Dream's older sister, Death. Go figure, Death is Dream's. One of their younger siblings, Desire, is in the comics. Desire is explicitly presented as a non-binary character, and again, this was like the early '90s, so this was sort of edgy for DC Comics to do in the early '90s. And this time they did cast for the TV show adaptation. They did cast a non-binary actor, Mason Alexander Park, which is very cool. just a lot of really interesting choices in the adaptation, not only in the casting, but in the ways that they've maybe massaged certain scenes, certain situations a little bit. I'm loving it. If you like sort of dark modern fantasy, if you're a fan of shows like Dark or Legion or Evil or anything of that nature, it's definitely going to be your jam, even if you don't know anything about the same day comics.
So I don't, and I'm not. But let me tell you, like 2 boyfriends in a row, comic book nerds. This is like the holy fucking grail other than Watchmen.
Yeah.
I have been in homes for over a decade now that contain like huge, chunky volumes of Sandman.
Yeah.
Do I do that or do I go to Netflix?
Watch Netflix, I think.
Okay.
I think the series is a great introduction. It kind of gets through the first few arcs of the comics in a very fleet way. And if you like them, definitely go back to the comics and sort of savor the artwork and Gaiman's maybe a little bit more languorous pace. You know, Tom Sturridge is not an actor I knew. He plays Dream, and he's again probably the most difficult role to play because it's played so po-faced. Like Dream is completely humorless, emo goth boy basically, and I can see why like it's a very difficult role, and he kills it. He plays it with just enough self-awareness that it works.
Very good. Okay.
That's on Netflix currently. And if you want to find me, you can find me at Arachnophiliac on Twitter and at AYat76 on Letterboxd.
Very good. I guess I don't have to pull a very heavy book from a shelf now. I can lift a remote.
Just dive into it.
Sounds good. I'm Joshua Ray. I last weekend did the final night of the Robert Classic French Film Festival. That is an annual festival we do, Cinema St. Louis. I got the pleasure of talking about Olivier Assayas's Irma Vep. And while I was doing my research, a door kicked open for me that cannot be shut now. That is the like Hong Kong cinema renaissance that started really proper. I guess you would pinpoint it in the late 70s, exploded into the 80s, and then found itself really stateside in the 90s when John Woo came over and started making films like Face Off and Broken Arrow and things like that. But it is much like Irma Vep. It expands outward and has many layers and levels, and I am just skimming the surface, but also coming across filmmakers like Choi Hak, whose name is Choi Hak. It is not Sue Hark. Like I said during my Irma Vep talk, I am so embarrassed, but now I am much more knowledgeable about the man. But I am just finding myself just head first into this film or into this cinema, unlike anything that I've done in quite some time. And I'm been very happy to say that now, a few months ago, I endorsed Holly Hunter. Now I'm very happy to endorse Maggie Chung.
Were we just talking about like the weird superhero movie?
The Heroic Trio.
Yeah.
That is a Johnny To film.
Yes, Johnny To. I remember watching it.
It is a Johnny To film starring Anita Moy, who's just incredible. Another Canto Pop personality. And, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
And Maggie Chung. That is my Heroic Trio. They will give me a life compass and point me in the right direction.
Well, I think this was the film that came up because somebody was saying how shameful it was that Michelle Yeoh was in a Marvel movie, and I'm like, do you know what kinds of movies that Michelle Yeoh is making?
Exactly. No, but that film is like, she plays the Invisible Woman, and Anita Moy is Wonder Woman. Now, I don't know if that's just a rough translation from the very terrible rip I watched. Anyway, really the endorsement is look forward to Janice has those 2 films, The Heroic Trio and its sequel, Executioners, which is a very interesting movie. One is very bright, fun, reminiscent of Burton's Batman. The other one is really depressing.
And they're both Johnny Toe.
So Johnny Toe has, I don't really know what the story is. Johnny Toe has co-directing credit on the sequel and co-writing credit. It's clear that someone was very upset making the sequel. It might play locally. Both of them, maybe.
Well, Janice
Yeah.
is usually the first step to like a restoration or Criterion release, right?
Yeah, so they've been recently restored and they're touring. I know they're going to play at the Ragtag in Columbia, but they might also play locally. And then eventually, you know what happens with Janice, we get a very nice Criterion edition. Yeah.
Now, if we
So-
could just get a restoration release for the like Triad Election trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually. I mean, for right now, just hang on to your shitty Heartburn DVD. I think that's what released it. I am not Crispy Retinas. I'm Joshua Ray, but you can find me online as Crispy Retinas on Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram. And you can find all of us at The Lens at cinemastlouis.org. All right. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be back with our Nancy and Nora series. I think up next, we've got Andrew's pick. Andrew, what's your pick?
It's the remake of The Parent Trap from Nancy Meyers, starring, I believe it's Natasha Richardson, Dennis Quaid, right? And of course, Lindsay Lohan in the dual role.
Times two.
Yeah.
Times two. So we're going to get into everything Nancy Meyers, Charles Shire, and we got to talk about Lindsay Lohan. We're going to have a Lohan corner. You just know it. And as always, and I know who killed me.
David Schwimmer, underrated in terms of his physical comedy. He does some like old school vintage sitcom style physical comedy in that show. That's pretty good.
Especially when he's got caterpillar eyebrows on as Robert Kardashian.
Have I ever told you about my friend? My friend lives in LA, one of my friends, and his roommate got rear-ended by David Schwimmer, and he sent him like a wine and cheese basket. And he's like, please don't like be mad at me, and like please don't like sue me or something. It was funny.
Did he get his insurance info?
Yeah, he did, and he has like a picture of his like license and everything like on his phone. It's just funny to like think about like him, and like also like if that were to like happen to Ross, because like that. Yeah.
Wait, Ross would do that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just funny. It sounds like he's like exactly how you imagine him.
Fucking paleontologist.
Yeah.
Can I put that story at the end of the podcast? That's hilarious. Can I please?
Maybe, yeah.